Hey everybody, I am just getting everything all set up to see. I'm getting a bunch of reminders on my phone. Gonna mute that and get started here soon enough. How's everybody's day going? All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Remember just to leave your comments or questions that you have, and I will answer them as I go. All right, so hopefully you guys were able to download and print the 14-page guide that goes along with this three-part video series. And so this is part one, Imposter Syndrome 101. So you can get to know what exactly is imposter syndrome, how is it showing up for you in your career, and what you can do about it. All right, so I'm just going to give you guys a quick little rundown because this can be forever. Hey, Beatriz, how are you? Um, yeah, let me know anything that any questions that you have on there. Sorry. Getting this live video going, it's a lot of moving pieces. It doesn't seem like it. So, imposter syndrome was first researched, which I had to go find out when that was first researched in 1978 by two women. And it was originally thought to be uniquely a syndrome women faced. But now it is found that it's both men and women. But we as women know that mostly we are the ones that encounter it the most. And so, what exactly is the definition? Hey, Jan. So, the definition is that it's a psychological pattern in which an individual doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments and has a persistent internalized fear of being found out. So, for myself, being going and getting my PhD, I think it's something that it's talked about a lot while getting your PhD, that a lot of students have the imposter syndrome. You're going through getting your PhD and then you graduate and you feel like an imposter because you haven't actually been in the field practicing and doing things. And so I think that's where I first learned about it and then was able to recognize it within myself and then in my clients. And so really this shows up in so many varied ways, not just in the workplace, but in all types of things where we're being challenged. Oh, thank you, B. Yeah, I absolutely love all the little knickknacks that I got going in here. So, if you're following along on the guide, oh, I forgot to put page numbers on these, but it's on here. It says, so when do you feel like a fraud, fake, or failure? So, write those things down. Like, when do you feel like one? A common place in the workplace is maybe during Zoom meetings, feeling during when being overlooked for projects, or not being promoted. A lot of times people start feeling like a failure because they're not seeing the progress or the momentum that they wish they were seeing in their career, and they can't pinpoint what it is or what's going on. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little poll here and see what you guys have going on. And just share your answers once you see the poll if you're able to see it. I'm new to doing that. I thought that was a neat little thing. So when you are feeling like an imposter, a fraud, or a fake, what are the thoughts that get stuck in your head that are keeping you in this feeling? So write those down. Those are important to write down and figure out what are the thoughts. So some thoughts might be like, oh my God, why did I think I could do this? It's okay, B. You can follow, you can download it later and have it ready for the next time. But I'm reading it, so just follow along and write down. So, what are the thoughts that get stuck on repeat that are keeping you feeling like a fraud, a fake, or a failure? Write down those thoughts, and if anyone feels comfortable in sharing some of the thoughts that they've had in the past, feel free to write those down because I would be share them in the comments because it'll give others an idea. I know for myself, when either I'm coming to a new challenge, one of them is like, why did I even think I could do this? Or something along the lines, if I'm not able to master something as quickly as I would like, um, it'd be like, again, kind of similar, like, why did I think I could do this? Or, it's not as easy as I thought it could be, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Those kinds of thoughts kind of go into repeat when you are going into this imposter syndrome. So the next question is, or the next statement is, when do you feel like you don't belong in the workplace? Right? So write those down. Like, when is it? Is it interacting with your peers? Is it interacting with clients? Is it interacting with executive leadership? Sometimes we may be doing really well when it comes to working with our staff, with working our direct supervisor, but then, maybe senior leadership where you want to be. You might feel really uncomfortable in a senior executive meeting and then start to feel like, I don't belong here. What am I doing here? So write down the places where you feel like you don't belong. Okay, so then this next portion is kind of like a little homework assignment for you guys. So after you write down the answers to those three questions, and I'll go over them again. So the first question was, when do you feel like a failure, fake or fraud, or an imposter? When? And then what thoughts get stuck in your mind when you get in that mode, when you just kind of start feeling that it's overwhelming? And then when do you feel like you don't belong in the workplace? So they're kind of similar. And so the next one is, can you, after that, you'll be naming, after you review your answers, name 2 trends, triggers, or things that you see popping up on what you're writing. All right, so that's for you to come back later too, and we'll go over that some more. Next place, how are these feelings holding you back in your career? Because that's great. Sometimes we have feelings, we feel a certain way, but it may not be holding us back. Maybe you're able to brush those off. But if you're not able to identify those thoughts, feelings that are holding your career back, then you won't really know. So first step to anything is really awareness and acknowledging what is going on. So how are these feelings holding you back in your career? So write that down. Are they keeping you from speaking up in meetings? Are they causing you to not apply to positions that you see that are open? Are they keeping you stuck in your current company or department because you just feel safe and comfortable? And if you go out somewhere else, you may not be able to be as successful because you're an imposter. And so identify, how are those feelings holding you back in your career? Now I want you to list 2 ways your career is currently stagnant due to those thoughts and feelings that are keeping you there. And then the next one is, where did these thoughts come from? Sometimes, they can come from your first time ever having a job. I know I had a supervisor in a previous role who was not very supportive of me whatsoever. And every time that something new came up, for example, when I went to get started my PhD program, and I was going to get married, and I got pregnant in my first year of my program. And her first thoughts were like, oh, well, now you have to quit your PhD program. And it wasn't congratulations on the baby, or I'm here to support you, or you can do it. It was none of those. It was straight, oh, now you got to quit your program. And to me, looking back at it, I didn't say anything. I didn't know how to respond to the supervisor. This wasn't the first time that she had demeaned me in a one-to-one. It was common, and I just did not know how to react in that situation. Going back, I wish I had said something to her, but I wasn't there. I wasn't in that place of confidence and growth. Of course, it didn't affect me internally, because to me, my first thoughts were, well, I'd quit this job before I'd quit my PhD program. Like I dropped that, like it might be bringing in money, but for myself, and the option is the PhD is always something I wanted to do. So, but those thoughts still, they do sink in and they go in, and later when you face a challenge, you may hear those words that someone has told you. These could be things you've heard growing up. This could be things that a teacher said, interactions that you had with people that weren't maybe even that important to you. But they'll sink in there, and then you find yourself feeling, um, then you find yourself, in this place of feeling like an imposter. Like, why did you even think you could do something like this? But this is where, first recognizing those thoughts, where they're coming from, and what is the trigger there, right? What is trigger? So, like, for example, that part where I went and shared my news. I was really anxious about letting her know that I was pregnant, and her first thoughts, like, I just froze. I didn't know what to do, and that was a lot of what was going on with me at the time, and even before then. If someone said something negative to me, I just froze and accepted it and just did not say anything. And that's how a lot of my relationships at the time and in the past, I'd handle them. I would just not say anything. I didn't speak my mind. I didn't say anything. So then, fast forward to being in a leadership role where I'm expected to share my opinions. I get that. You get that. You go back to that moment in time where you weren't treated right, or you weren't, provided with great nurturing support, and then you feel yourself again feeling like an imposter. Like, what am I doing here? Like, should I speak my mind? Should I not? And you start to second guess yourself. And so that's just some variety of ways that imposter syndrome comes up for people. So now imagine that you didn't have those feelings. Imagine that you felt great and confident and you didn't have the imposter syndrome going on. List 2 ways that your career would be different right now if you didn't have those thoughts. What would change? Right? You have to have a reason for the change. You have to have a reason why you want to overcome these feelings of imposter syndrome, these feelings of feeling like a fraud or like you don't belong. You have to have a motivator, and it has to be internal. It can't be from because you're trying to appease anybody, because it's not going to work. And really that's all that it comes down to. What are you trying to do, right? And so the next video is going to be about failure and having that feeling that you can't fail and how to overcome that. And so I did have people submit questions prior to the live. And so one of them said was, how do you overcome negative thoughts? And so the first step to overcoming negative thoughts, those thoughts that keep you in that feeling of imposter syndrome, that feeling of, well, I'm not, is to write down those thoughts and then to break them down. Identify what are some of those triggers, and then from there, transform them into positive statements. Change them up, because you got to change your internal language in order to be able to stop the negative thoughts. But it's not a simple, oh, I'm going to stop saying that. It's a transformation. It's going to take time. It may feel kind of like, oh, this is dumb, because it's new and it doesn't happen instantaneously. But you just have to start pumping yourself up and showing yourself love, because ultimately that's what you're not doing. You're showing yourself the opposite of love, and you're not supporting yourself. So there is another portion that I almost missed. So I came across a great book that you guys can look into if you're interested in. It's called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women, and it is by Valerie Young, who's an expert on imposter syndrome. And so she found 5 patterns. I'm going to go ahead and read them to you guys. And at the end of this live, I'll put a comment and the link to the book, and I'll put a comment on what the 5 patterns that she found. So the first one that she found was perfectionist. So it shows up as a perfectionist. So you have extremely high expectations, and even if you met 99% of your goal, you still feel like a failure because you didn't get that 1%. You had a small mistake that just ruined it, ruined the success. So instead of cheering yourself on for that complete success that you had, you focus on that 1% that you didn't. So that's the perfectionist, how it shows up for a perfectionist, the imposter syndrome. The next one is the ones that are the experts, people who feel, or women that feel that they need to know every piece of information before they start a project, or they're constantly looking for a new certification or training to improve their skills. And they won't apply for a job. So these experts, they won't apply for a job unless they meet all the expectations on the criteria. They're hesitant to speak in class, in a meeting, because they're afraid to looking like they are stupid or that they don't know the answer. So those are the experts, and that's how it shows up for them, that imposter syndrome. And then, yeah, Nicole, this next one is totally me. It's called the natural genius. So this is someone who maybe just is a natural genius. And so they begin to struggle or work hard to accomplish something. And so then she thinks that they're not good enough. She's not good enough. That her skills, she's used to them coming easy. And when she has to put in the effort, her brain starts to tell her, bam, see, who did you think you were? It's proof that you're an imposter. And so then that one, I know that's totally me because I am really good at everything that I apply myself to. And when something becomes challenging, I really start to question myself whether it's something that I should be doing or not. And sometimes I will say, sometimes if you are challenged at something and you don't like what you're doing, then maybe reconsider. But if you really like it and it's just a challenge, it just means you need that growth. So just remember that. Then there's the soloist. They feel that they accomplish tasks on their own, and if they need to ask for help, they think that it means that they are a fraud or a failure. So that's for all of you out there that you feel like you got to be able to do everything by yourself, or it means that you're failing. That is an example of imposter syndrome. You have to be able to ask for help. Sometimes it just happens. You need to be able to ask for help, to delegate, and especially in your career, because if you are doing it all, you don't have time to grow further in your career. In your career, you'll have to learn how to balance that, not do it all, so that you can focus on the things that really matter so that you can grow in your career. Next one is the superwoman. So superwomen push themselves to work harder than those around them to prove that they're not imposters. They feel the need to succeed in all aspects of their life, work, as parents, as partners, and may feel stressed when they're not accomplishing something. So in that low, they start to have a low, and then they start feeling like they're failing at something. I know that sometimes I probably do feel like that when I don't have something going on, which is, all of these are completely natural. They happen. It does not mean that you can't overcome them or that it even matters. It's just something for you to know and to recognize that it's not all in your head. You may start to internalize a lot of things that are going on in the workplace because of the imposter syndrome. You may start feeling like, hey, I think that person had an attitude towards me, and it's because blah, blah, blah. You start internalizing all these things. So another way to be able to combat that is to talk to a neutral person, someone who's not just going to tell you what you want to hear and may call you out on, hey, maybe you're reading too much into this. And you may need to tell them, hey, I want you to be upfront with me in my you know, overthinking this? Am I just putting too much onto this event that happened? And you may find that you're not, or you may find that you are. But either way, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day whether it is or it isn't. What really matters is how is it going to help you or not help you? And especially since I'm focused on the career, how is it going to help you in your career to fixate on a situation that happened? If it's not related to your work or making you shine, process it, feel it, and let it go. All right. So, guys, I am done with everything that I was going to go over, but I would love to hear your questions on imposter syndrome, what it is, and just to remind you guys that next Tuesday we'll be doing a can't fail part two, how to move forward when you feel like you can't do something because you're afraid of failing. Any questions before I log on? Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to hearing and reading all your comments below. I know that there's sometimes a little bit of a delay on Facebook. Thanks. I really want you guys to also comment where you're joining me from. I see that we have a few people on, so I'm going to be able to shout out and know where you guys are at and where my reach is. And while I'm here, I'm going to share that link to that book. It's called The Secret Thoughts of Successful Women. So I'll put that in here. Is being complicit, so here's the question, is being complicit instead of speaking up a sign of imposter syndrome? Noelle, I think it really just depends on the situation. If you care to share a little bit more on or elaborate on the situation that it's happening in, because sometimes it depends. So you may sometimes check out, right? I like to call it check out of work, and you're not as invested in work because you feel like maybe you've been trying and then you keep getting shut down, and that's a defense mechanism and it's kind of a barrier. I wouldn't necessarily call it imposter syndrome. I think it's more like a defense mechanism to keep yourself and protect yourself. If you feel comfortable in speaking with your supervisor, I would talk with your supervisor about that. Being complicit can just mean that maybe you're comfortable and you're not ready to do something about it. If you're recognizing that, it could just mean that you're at a place where you're not really sure where you want to go next, and finding clarity in that will help you. Because I like to say the hustle and bustle, a year will go by because you're so busy, focused maybe on your personal life matters. That work, you're just happy that work is just work. But then there comes to a point where maybe your life matters, your personal life stuff has, not as busy. And then you get to recognize that, um, like you've been complacent and you haven't been moving forward and having the traction. A lot of it too can also be that because you've been in a role for so long and you have this feeling of like, well, I've been doing this for so long, I should be up for the next promotion. But that's not how careers work anymore. In the past it was, but not now. So yeah, there's a lot there, and you can always message me. We can unpack it more later. Hi, hi B. Yeah, definitely a lot to unpack and lot. And so I'll make sure to do some office hours in the Facebook group. So if you're not in my Facebook group, I'm going to drop the link there so you guys can join. And I'm going to start doing some office hours for those that are on there. So I'll put a poll in the group to see what day and time works best for everyone, and we'll do a live group to have just some where I can answer some of those questions like that. All right, guys. Well, if you're late to it, just go ahead and watch the replay. Put hashtag replay. I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.